Hi teachers, and welcome to this week's lesson gem. We're going to be focusing on Matthew chapter 11 verses 28 through 30. And let me give you two invitations or two considerations as we start this week's lesson gem. Number one, the lesson manual or the teacher's manual is fantastic. This lesson plan for today could be used as a script, starting from point A and finishing at point B at the end of the lesson, and you would have a powerful, Christ-centered, principle and doctrine-driven lesson that would help our students grow closer to Jesus Christ. Second, we're going to be focusing on how can we help our students feel like they belong or have and create a sense of love, respect, and purpose within our classrooms. So in order to do this, let's get right into it. As always, I'll continue to put in the description below a link to the slides to this PowerPoint. So if you would like them, please go ahead and click on the link below and it will bring you to these PowerPoint slides. But just number one, that teacher's manual is great if we learn to adopt it and then adapt to our situation. Use it and then adapt to what we're going to do. And so let me show you a couple of things that I would do to create a sense of love, respect, and purpose within our classrooms, or how I would adopt the lesson plan and adapt it to my individual desires, needs, preferences. First and foremost, in the lesson plan, it's going to have you do a readiness activity. Every lesson has these readiness activities that you could do, and so I'm going to emphasize a couple. But the lesson readiness that I'm going to take is right here in your lesson manual here, the alternate learning activity at the very bottom of your lesson plan. So please go ahead and read through that. I'll emphasize it because I have it right here, the alternate learning activity at the end of the lesson. Or we could ask them a question if we're not going to use this activity, or if you have a smaller type classroom with one or two students, or it may not work online. But let's ask them a question. If we're going to be talking about the Savior can lessen or lighten our burdens, have you ever been given an assignment or a task that was discouraging because it was too much? Could have been a homework lesson. Have them discuss some things. Maybe open that question up. If you're teaching online, maybe use the chat box. But then, did you ever receive help in any of those circumstances? Or how does it help or how does it feel when that help comes? Because then we're going to jump into chapter 11, verses 28 through 30. We're going to read these verses. What is the Savior trying to help us see, and how can we relate a personal experience to these verses? So the readiness activity is designed to get them into the verses, to help them relate to those verses. Next, we want to establish truth. And if we're talking about establishing truth, in this lesson is emphasizing the doctrinal mastery verses, chapter 11, 28 through 30. But then as we are teaching them, we want them to, again, establish this truth. And there's the bolded principle right from the teacher's manual lesson. The bolded principle is this, but also Jesus Christ will always be there for us. Jesus Christ will always help us in our times of need. He'll never ask us to do anything that he's not willing to help us on. So if we're establishing truth, we're going through verses 28 through 30, helping them establish the truth or these principles that we want them to focus on. Also, here's a possible activity. Read those three verses pretending you know nothing about Jesus Christ, looking for what you learn. And there are some wonderful attributes and characteristics about who Jesus Christ is in these verses. There's an amazing Elder Bednar quote. Again, jumping right back into this Elder Bednar quote, after you establish what a yoke is and how it helps us, how do we yoke ourselves with Jesus Christ? Elder Bednar says, making and keeping sacred covenants yokes us to Jesus Christ. And then that follow-up question, how do you think that making and keeping covenants yoke us to and with Jesus Christ? Love these questions, love these activities with, again, pulling it straight from the teacher's manual. Then it focuses on how can I come unto Jesus Christ? And I'm just going to, like I said, I took this slide, but I took this directly from the teacher's manual. If somebody asked you, what would you say? Here's the quote from Elder Scott. I love this quote from Elder Scott because that's going to build upon how I ask my students or invite my students to go and do at the end of my lesson. How might Christ lift my burdens? Now, this is where I'm going to adapt my lesson just a little bit. Because sometimes we expect or think that help's going to come in a certain way because that's the way we would do it. And when it doesn't come that way, we get a little bit disappointed. So what I would say, brothers and sisters, is ask them this question. Have you ever received help that you didn't appreciate? Or at first it didn't look like help at all? And word it the way that you would word it. I have a couple of different ways that you can do it. Or have you ever preferred help in one way and either removed your burden or made it much easier? That's what you're looking for, but it didn't come. Will the help that Jesus Christ offers always be the help that we want or expect? Why or why not? And then let's go into Mosiah chapter 24. In Mosiah chapter 24, these people were following Jesus Christ, and then they get put in slavery. And while in slavery, such heavy tasks that it was loathsome to bear. I mean, they just couldn't bear it. And how did Jesus Christ take them away? Do you think that they appreciated it? Let's look at these verses about how Jesus Christ helps lessen burdens. But then, what will I invite or help my students to consider to go and do? Consider inviting them to think about how they might have missed the Lord's help previously because it wasn't what they wanted or expected. And how might recognizing the hand of the Lord in their lives previously, how could that help them to trust Him more today? Consider inviting your students to make a goal to more fully to come unto Him. Using that Elder Scott quote once more, go back to it. Look at, this is how I come unto Him. And He gives multiple ways on how to come unto Him. Consistently praying, consistently study scriptures, family home evening, attending church, temple. Again, the primary answers. But what could you do to better come unto Him? And then maybe consider an invitation that you would use to offer to your students. So with these ways that we can adopt the curriculum, but then adapt it to our personal situations, desires, preferences, it's going to help our students to feel like they have a purpose in class. They're going to feel loved and respected. I'll also include in the link below ways to help validate or to help our students feel like they have been appreciated when they make a comment or a suggestion or a question. And those will be in the description below. Thank you so much, brothers and sisters, and have a wonderful week.